John Hamilton, standing for the Workers' Party of Britain in the upcoming Lewisham mayoral election on the 7th of March. You've stood for the mayoralty a few times now.
Yeah.
Why have another crack at it?
Well, I actually thought I would give up local politics for a while, and I haven't done very much for the last 4 or 5 years. But this time it's just so blatant. Damien Egan resigning to go and get a mayor, try and get into Parliament in Bristol. It just shows the bankruptcy of the Labour Party. They are just careerists. And Brenda Dacres, their candidate, you know, she's been useless as a cabinet housing member. She's been useless as a councillor. I remember chatting to her a few years ago about the Besson Street site, which has now been empty for 16 years since they demolished all the council flats there. And she was saying, oh yes, we'll put some council flats there. There might be a developer involved. But there's nothing, it's still totally empty. And housing is one of the most important things that affects the people of Lewisham. All these high-rise blocks that are going up, they're not affordable for people who live here with ordinary wages. They just sell them off plan in Kuala Lumpur, Shanghai, as investment properties. That's not what we need.
Describe to people what you do outside of politics.
I'm a heating engineer. I'm an environmentally conscious heating engineer. I've been doing underfloor heating. I'm a specialist in underfloor heating for about 26 years, and I think I do a good job. I also install air source heat pumps. I'm on my way to a job now in Abbey Wood. I mainly work locally. I travel by bicycle to my jobs. I can also do boiler repairs and general plumbing, but other people can do that. I also make hot water solar panels that go on people's roofs or on their walls to give them free hot water from the sun.
What's your favourite part of Lewisham?
Favourite part? That's difficult to say. It depends what you want to do. Blackheath is lovely for going for a walk or going out with my children and flying kites. Mind you, that was a few years ago now. I was brought up in Catford mainly. I lived in Hither Green Lane when I was very little, so I know Catford well. I like Downham, I like Forest Hill and Sydenham. I have friends in those areas. And Telegraph Hill is where I've been for the last 27 years. So yeah, I like it all. Obviously there's some bits that are nicer than others. Deptford is a very vibrant place these days, or West Greenwich as some people like to call it. A bit poncy, that name, I think. But, things have revived a bit here, but there's still lots of poverty, particularly in Deptford.
If there is one place in Lewisham where, let's say if you had a friend round or a work colleague and you're going to take them somewhere to eat, where in Lewisham would you take that person to eat?
Well, if you'd asked me that 20 years ago, I'd have said Heather's Cafe Bistro, a wonderful vegan restaurant that was just around the corner here. But unfortunately, Mike and Joe have moved to Ireland and that doesn't exist anymore. To go to eat, that's a good question, you know. I don't often go out to eat. Meze Mangal, perhaps, the Turkish restaurant. I often go there on Lewisham Way, quite near the junction with Friendly Street. I don't know if your viewers are familiar with that. And just outside Lewisham, Persepolis, the Iranian restaurant in Peckham, is excellent. I'm a vegetarian, and so I like to look for places which have interesting vegetarian food, and I would recommend both of those.
So in your manifesto, you're refusing to take the mayoral salary of circa £80,000 and take home a worker's wage. Remind my viewers what the worker's wage in Lewisham is.
It's about £28,000. Obviously, when elected, I'll have to check that exactly. But I'm not into lots of money. I don't see why the mayor should have more than other people. I don't really agree with salaries being dependent on alleged skills and training. We all need to live in the same way. We all need food. We all need to pay our rent or mortgage. And well, as a communist, you know, I think we shouldn't have money at all. But we're obviously not at that stage. But I certainly don't think it's right for the mayor to be paid huge amounts. And that's part of the problem with the mayoral system, because the mayor can then give cabinet places to his other colleagues, the ones who agree with him or her, and they then get large increases in their pay. It's all patronage, you know. So they end up with the people that agree with them anyway, because that's why they've chosen them. It'd be very rare to have someone in the cabinet who didn't agree with the mayor fundamentally, because it's just not democratic, which is why I want to get rid of the mayoral system. And I've always said that, ever since I first stood for mayor in 2006.
So if you're going to take home a worker's wage of circa 28,000, where is the rest of the money going to go towards?
It'll just go into the council budget. We will have more money to spend on the things I really want to do, which is reopen the under-5s play groups in all the parks. There used to be a network of about 9 when I first was going to the play group with my daughter when she was tiny. and they were closed down. I led the campaign to continue to make them free in 1999. The mayor wanted to charge, but we had the support of all the staff and other parents to maintain them free. But then Steve Bullock, the mayor, for 16 years, decided to close them all down, blaming it on the Tory and Lib Dem cuts, of course. But I think it's an essential part of life. Imagine you're a parent, maybe a single parent, living in a flat without a garden. You need somewhere to take your child, and especially when it's raining and you might not have a garden. Those are invaluable places to meet other parents and for your children to meet other children and get on, learn to socialise. So that's my priority. But libraries, youth clubs and community centres, which were also closed down by Bullock, should be reopened as well.
So if part of that money that you're refusing to take from the mayoral salary goes back into all those services, surely around 50,000 will probably only cover about a library
Yeah, you're right.
or an under 5 centre.
Yeah, you're
How
right.
else are you going to raise the money to fund reopening these centres?
Good question, Johnny. It's going to be raised by scrapping the PFI contracts. Most of your readers will know, most of your listeners or your viewers will probably know a bit about PFI. There was something on Radio 4 about it just the other day. Private Finance Initiative. So you will probably remember the Save Lewisham Hospital campaign, which People Before Profit and the Pensioners Forum started. Those two hospitals in Greenwich, that's the Borough of Greenwich, and Borough of Bromley, that were built under PFI, cost 210 million to build, but the repayments over the 25-year lifespan of the Private Finance Initiative contracts amount to 1,200 million. And it was because of that Lewisham was under threat. They wanted to close Lewisham, force us all to go to Woolwich. It's the same with the schools that have been built in Lewisham. If you look on my website, there's a page on PFI. It shows how much was paid back on the loans by 2006 or 2008, depending on the case. But on the right-hand side of each graph, you see how much the total repayments are. And it's 5 or 6 times what the real cost was. This is just loan sharking, and I will use the clause in international law that is called odious debt. Odious debt means that if a dictator in some country gets into debt for his country, borrowing money from banks and stuff, and then he's overthrown, that the people of that country don't have to be held liable for the debt. It's called odious because it's hateful debt. It's actually a biblical concept, but it is a principle in law. Now, we didn't ask Steve Bullock to spend £90 million on the street lighting contract with Skanska. We didn't ask Steve Bullock if he'd do the maintenance in Brockley housing by PFI. So we were not consulted. He didn't say he was going to do that in his manifesto before being elected. So I think there's a good case for saying it's odious debt. I'm not saying we'd ask for the money back, but we would just say, no more payments. You've had your money 4 or 5 times over, you banks, we're not going to give you any more. And that would release lots of money for all the things that I just mentioned, and more besides.
You've pledged to restore the speed limit across Lewisham to 30 miles an hour. Why is that?
That's not what I actually said. I said restore 30 mile an hour on main roads. Because, I'm a cyclist mainly, but I do sometimes drive, and buses go along these roads. And if you come from Catford to Lewisham, sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 30. There's cameras. You don't necessarily know what it is. It should just be 30 on the main A roads, I think. And roads like Adelaide Avenue, which go from Crofton Park to Ladywell, they're through routes. They're safe. There's a service road at the side. You're not going to get children jumping out in front of cars there. So I just think it's unnecessarily slow and just holds people up.
So 20 is not plenty?
20 is fine for residential streets where people are living, back streets. I think that's fine. But I think it's just a bit of a fad that the council has had with bringing the speed limit down to 20. Maybe it's to do with increasing revenue from fines when people exceed it, because most people don't stick to 20. They slow down when they come to a camping.
So if you're elected on the 7th of March, you'll have just over 2 years until the end of your term. Obviously, you've spoken about housing quite a lot of times. Housing is a big issue in this borough. How many homes do you think you can get started before the end of your term in May 26?
I don't know what the figure would be, but I'm going to do it in a different way, you see. When we had you can see one of the videos, I think, on our website, of when we built a little house on the lawn of the town hall. And Steve Bullock, in response, said he was going to increase his pledged to build 250 council homes to 500. Of course he didn't. But what I want to do is not have developers do the building and then give a very small proportion over to affordable, so-called affordable homes. I want to set up a direct works team, people employed by the council to build houses on the sites that are currently empty. And so there may be none built in those 2 years, but we will sow the seeds of a better future. It only costs about £75,000 to £100,000 to build a housing unit, whether that's a small house or a flat. It varies a little bit. That's not very much. We can borrow the money from the government at much lower interest rates than from banks or than PFI schemes, and we will then be on a good course to provide homes for local families.
So let's take this scenario, for example. You've just been elected the Mayor of Lewisham.
Hooray! Thank you all.
What does day one of a Mayor John Hamilton administration look like?
Oh, well, interestingly, I don't know if I should really say this. Day one is a day's holiday for all council staff on the Monday so that investigators can get access to the financial accounting. Because there have been allegations, and I'm not repeating those now, I'm not sure how valid they are, that there's been financial mismanagement in the town hall, particularly around the Lewisham homes issues. So I want to be able to send someone in there to look at those figures without those records being deleted, because they would incriminate some people, I think, possibly the last mayor.
What would you say makes you different from the other candidates standing?
Well, I'm honest, I'm not a careerist, I know about politics in Lewisham. I've lived here most of my life, but then some other candidates have done that. But no, I think every one of you knows me, knows that I'm committed to what I believe in, and I'm not doing it for personal gain.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
3, that's a bit difficult. Principled, open, committed.
Okay. And my final question to you, John. Mayoral elections before previously were taken under supplementary vote, if I'm correct. Supplementary vote. This is the first election in Lewisham where it's done under first past the post. If you could vote for one of your other fellow candidates, who would you vote for?
Mike Heron, Green Party.
Why Mike?
It's not Mike. In fact, I don't know Mike, but the Green Party has a clean record. I don't agree with them about everything, but they're also a principled party, and I think they would also have principles, commitment, and be open to listening to the voters. I also like Chris Mains very much. He's been an excellent Liberal Democrat councillor in the past. We get on fine. And Nick Long is also obviously committed to the Palestinian issue, as I am. So they're all good candidates, but not the Conservative and not Labour.
Finally, sell your pitch to the people of Lewisham now in under 30 seconds.
If you vote for me, things will be different. If you vote Labour, things will be the same. We've had the same every time people have elected another mayor, and we don't need more of the same. We don't need housing problems, community problems. We need a change, and I'm the person to bring that. I have the guts to stand up to council officers who might wish to stand in the way of change. We need that change, and we need it now.
John Hamilton, standing for the Workers' Party with People Before Profit on March the 7th. Beg my pardon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johnny.